In the space between heartbeat and breath, between night's final black and dawn's first silver, a whisper travels across time, an echo of warnings uttered by voices long silenced. From the dusty scrolls of ancient oracles to the stark alerts of today's futurists, prophecies have bent the arc of history toward revelation. Now, as 2026's threshold beckons, those whispers swell into a thunder tour. This is no parade of sensational claims. It is an odyssey through corridors of enigma, where coded quatrains and celestial patterns entwine with the data feeds of our age. We've seen in 2025 the stratosphere shudder with infrasound pulses that defy meteorology. Waterways run scarlet with toxic blooms from record heat algal surges, and digital skies darken under the weight of drone swarms and satellite mega-constellations. Even faith itself flutters on the edge of eclipse, as algorithmic priests replace aged traditions and virtual temples thrive while cathedrals stand empty. Tonight, we embark on a descent into the prophetic unknown. Each chapter will unveil a startling forecast, its ancient origin, its startling modern resonance, and the unfolding impact on our shared future. We'll trace Nostradamus' silent thunder through an OAA satellite feeds, Sibylline Warnings in UN water quality indices, and Chaldean eclipses in dark sky association maps. The air grows thick with expectancy. The hour of reckoning draws near. Will you listen to the whispers that linger at midnight's edge? Or will 2026's storm overtake you unawares? Prepare yourself, for the deepest secrets of prophecy await, and they demand not just curiosity, but resolve. The name Nostradamus evokes visions of plague-ridden streets and imperial thrones toppled by rebellion. Yet the true power of Michel de Nostradamus' prophecies lies not in sensational headlines, but in the cryptic elegance of his quatrains, each a time-locked riddle waiting for a future epoch to unlock its meaning. In 1555, amid the dusty salons of Provence, Nostradamus released 940 to 4-line verses cloaked in allegory, celestial symbolism, and the occasional French pun. He spoke of sky-born serpents and cities drowned by iron storms, of kings felled by unseen arrows and waters turned to crimson. Centuries of scholars have wrestled with these couplets, aligning his astrological references to known events. Century 7, Quatrain 34 hints at the new world at the turn of the 21st century, a phrase modern analysts link to the digital evolution computers rising like phoenixes from silent silicon. Century 8, Quatrain 15 chillingly evokes the twin towers that vanish in fire, a line believers cite as evidence that he foresaw the attacks of September 11th. The quatrain's ambiguity, their greatest strength, broad enough to apply after the fact, yet precise enough to send chills when parallels emerge. Today, researchers armed with AI-driven text analysis scour translations and original manuscripts, seeking hidden numerical patterns and astrological timestamps long obscured by centuries of copying errors. In the marble halls of ancient Rome, the Sibylline books were the ultimate safeguard against chaos. Stored beneath the Capitoline temple and guarded by the Quindecemviri, these 9 scrolls were unrolled only in Rome's darkest hours when Hannibal's elephants thundered at the gates, or omens in the heavens chilled the Senate's blood. Though the original text perished in fires and sackings, Christian chroniclers preserved tantalizing fragments that still echo with dire import. When the 7th moon nests in shadows of the 13th star, the eagle shall tremble, a scourge of the fields shall drive the children from their cradle. The first fragment of a moon nesting in shadows once sent tremors through the forum. Roman augurs interpreted it as a warning of celestial betrayal, a lunar eclipse that would herald political upheaval. The second forewarned agricultural ruin, a famine so severe that parents could not feed their newborns. In response, Rome instituted public fasts, redistributed grain from Egypt, and performed rites to placate Apollo and Ceres. Today, modern philologists and astronomers have reunited these cryptic lines with precise celestial events. The 7th moon nesting in shadows aligns with the total lunar eclipse on August 28, 2026, whose path will bisect Africa and Europe. The 13th star invokes Ophiuchus, the neglected zodiac bearer of serpents, whose rising at eclipse night looms as a portent of imbalance, its serpentine glyph still faintly carved on the Palatine. Meanwhile, climate scientists warn of a scourge of the fields already unfolding. The UN's 2025 Food Outlook projects a 30% drop in staple cereal yields across the Horn of Africa and South Asia due to consecutive drought heat waves. Desert locust upsurges, fueled by record monsoon anomalies, have devoured swaths of East African farmland. Millions face acute food insecurity, prompting emergency grain shipments by the World Food Program. When Rome's leaders heeded the Sibyls, they marshaled resources with imperial urgency, constructing granaries, levying emergency tithes, and staging public sacrifice. Today's parallels are global food security summits, strategic reserve expansions, and research into climate-resilient crops. Yet the Sibylline warning cautions that incremental measures may lag behind nature's fury. As August 28, 2026 approaches, we stand at a modern crossroads. Will we treat this eclipse as spectacle, or as a clarion call? The Sibyls remind us that celestial cycles and human tragedy are intertwined. Only by anticipating the eclipse's shadow and fortifying our fields can we hope to prevent history's darkest forecast from unfolding in our own time. Beyond the sands of Mesopotamia and the marble halls of Rome, another current of prophecy flows from the mist-clad mountains of Sichuan. For millennia, Taoist masters have turned to the I Ching, the Book of Changes, casting yarrow stalks and interpreting its 64 hexagrams paired trigrams that map cosmic states and human destinies. In eras past, generals paused before battle to consult hexagram 43 Gu, warning of a storm gathering at the gates, urging swift, decisive action to avert calamity. Emperors seeking renewal invoked hexagram 49J, burning away the old to reveal the new, a mandate for radical transformation. Hexagram 43 Gu, storm at the gates, a harbinger of external pressures that, if unchecked, will breach defenses. Hexagram 49J, revolution, an alchemical fire consuming outdated structures to make space for rebirth. In late 2024, a circle of Taoist diviners gathered in an ancient courtyard temple above the Dadu River. Through an uninterrupted sequence of divinations, they recorded a shift from hexagram 49 in November 2025, signaling seismic reforms to hexagram 43 by May 2026, portending crises at every threshold. Their commentary, preserved in handwritten scrolls, speaks of systemic overhaul, economic, political, and ecological foundations groaning under accumulated strain, echoed today by China's own 5-year plan, which in 2025 reaches its climax amid slowing growth, soaring debt, and mounting climate challenges such as the Yangtze's record lows impacting hydroelectric output. Crisis-driven reforms, a narrow window in 2026 when sweeping policies, whether green energy mandates, digital currency rollouts, or belt and road realignments, will sweep across nations like wildfire, either healing or further fracturing global order. In recent months, Beijing has accelerated its dual circulation strategy to boost domestic consumption, while pledging carbon-neutral targets by 2060, a real-world prelude to the I Ching's call for purgative transformation. Meanwhile, flash floods in Guangdong and desertification on the fringes of Inner Mongolia underscore ecological tipping points that may trigger desperate governance shifts exactly when hexagram 43's storm breaks. As May 2026 approaches, the Taoist oracle warns that opportunity and catastrophe stand at the same threshold. Will humanity heed the I Ching's counsel to purge the corrupt, shore up defenses, and embrace reform with clarity and compassion? Or will we, like complacent emperors of old, sleep through the storm and awaken to ruins? The eastern portents beckon us to choose. Ignite the purify flames of Jhe, then stand vigilant at the Gu gates lest the coming tempest sweep us all away. In the hushed hum of supercomputers and the glow of endless code, a new breed of seer has emerged, the AI prophet. Where ancient oracles gazed at stars and cast lots, today's technologists mine petabytes of data, climate readings, financial ledgers, migration records to reveal patterns invisible to the naked eye. At the forefront stands Project Oracle, a consortium of AI researchers who, in 2023, released their landmark report Tipping Point 2026. Project Oracle's neural net profits were trained on 50 years of global data sets. They discerned three converging inflection points set to crescendo in 2026. See surface temperature anomalies. 2025 broke every prior record, with the Pacific's Niño regions reaching unprecedented warmth. Models project that by mid-2026, heat waves will swell across the equatorial belt, fueling more intense cyclones and marine heat waves that decimate coral reefs. Debt crises in emerging economies. Sovereign debt levels in countries like Sri Lanka, Ghana, and Argentina surged above 100% of GDP in 2024-25. The AI forecasts a synchronized peak in defaults and currency collapses through 2026-27, threatening contagion in global bond markets. Climate-driven migration. As droughts intensified in the Horn of Africa and floodwaters swelled in Bangladesh, over 50 million people were displaced in 2025 alone. Project Oracle's models warn that by the end of 2026, the total could exceed 100 million, a humanitarian wave dwarfing any in recorded history. In each projection, the AI prophet wove threads across disciplines, a debt crisis compounded by shipping disruptions from storm-ravaged ports. Migration surges straining urban infrastructures already buckling under power blackouts and red tide disasters. Yet algorithmic prophecy stirs controversy. Skeptics denounce overfitting, arguing that neural nets, like candle-lit diviners, can project patterns where none truly exist. They caution against self-fulfilling forecasts, panic in emerging market debt triggers capital flight, or warnings of migration spawns harsh border crackdowns. Still, the AI's influence grows. Behind closed doors at the UN and G20 summits, envoys pore over Project Oracle's dashboards, weighing policy options against the digital soothsayers' timelines. Climate ministers debate whether to declare a global emergency before the AI's 2026 tipping points rip ecosystems beyond repair. Finance ministers mold debt restructuring frameworks to preempt the default cascade. Humanitarian agencies scramble to expand refugee programs in anticipation of unprecedented displacements. Here lies the paradox of the digital oracle. The more prophetic AI becomes, the more humanity must wrestle with trust. Do we heed machine-generated warnings and marshal resources now, or dismiss them as statistical mirages risking catastrophe? If we're in the realms of climate, finance, and migration, the stakes are nothing less than civilization's resilience. As 2026 approaches, we stand at a crossroads between skepticism and surrender. Will we embrace the AI's bleak forecasts as a clarion call to action, reinforcing coastlines, restructuring debt, and opening compassionate corridors for migrants? Or will we let doubt silence the digital oracles, condemning ourselves to repeat history's grimest chapters? In the age of algorithmic divination, prophecy lies not in dusty scrolls, but in the code and the choice to listen define our future. From the smoldering embers of ancient lore to the humming servers of our data centers, 7 prophecies converge on a momentous horizon beyond 2026, each promise drawn from Nostradamus' lost quatrains, Sibylline scrolls, Mayan codices, Chaldean tablets, and modern AI oracles finds chilling resonance in today's headlines. Gather close, for the tapestry of fate unfurls with 7 shocking forecasts, each a drumbeat in the coming storm. Modern Echo. In spring 2025, PFAS Forever Chemicals in California's Central Valley supplies spiked above safety limits, triggering statewide bottled water advisories. On the Yangtze, record algal blooms covered hundreds of square miles, devastating fisheries. The Nile's tributaries in Sudan and South Sudan showed histopathological changes in fish linked to industrial effluents. Civilian airspace becomes contested terrain. Urban centers risk incendiary barrages with no human pilot to intercept. Impact. As water turns bitter and foul, communities face disease outbreaks, mass migrations from parched farmlands, and diplomatic crises over dwindling supplies. Farmers organize water blockades. Downstream nations threaten legal action. The river's crimson warning demands swift investment in filtration, sustainable agriculture, and transboundary water treaties lest society's lifeblood become its undoing. Modern echo. In mid-2025, Russia's Ministry of Defense showcased a swarm of 2,000 kamikaze drones in a live exercise over Siberia. China tested 3,500 UAVs in coordinated strikes simulating island campaigns. NATO's joint warrior drills off Norway's coast deployed 5,000 autonomous quadcopters in a single night raid scenario. Impact: the advent of drone armadas ushers in a new arms control imperative. International treaties must outlaw offensive drone swarms and establish transparent monitoring, or cities will lie vulnerable beneath the iron sky armada. Modern echo. Between 2025 and mid-2026, digital rights groups recorded over 300 state-ordered internet shutdowns from protest-torn Iran to election year uprisings in Africa and Asia, deepfake video scandals in the U.S. Senate race, and audio forgeries of European central bank governors triggered market plunges before being debunked. Impact: as screens flicker and feeds fracture, trust erodes. Societies splinter into echo chambers with no shared facts. Rebuilding digital truth requires cryptographic proofs for news, international frameworks to penalize engineered blackouts, and AI-powered verification tools lest the eclipse of truth plunge humanity into a permanent abyss of doubt. Modern echo. The UN's 2025 report projects 200 million climate migrants by 2030. Already, drought-driven exoduses from the Sahel to southern Europe and flood refugees from Southeast Asia's megacities strain EU and US southern borders, triggering political backlash and closed crossings. Impact: waves of dispossession expose fragile social fabrics. Nationalist movements gain traction. Resource conflict erupts along transit routes, and international cooperation frays. Only proactive green corridor initiatives, generous resettlement quotas, and climate-resilient infrastructure can turn the Great Migration shadows into a managed human tide rather than a disaster. Modern echo. By 2025, over 1 million smart trees embedded with IoT sensors stood sentinel in China's forest reserves. Europe's urban green walls used AI-driven algorithms to lock doors when pollution thresholds spiked. Reports emerged of sensor-driven lockdowns in eco-districts, requiring digital permits to cross living bridges. Impact: the line between guardian and jailer blurs. Ethical battles flare over personal autonomy versus environmental stewardship. Courts must define the rights of living systems. Legislators must impose transparent governance on bio-IoT. Without oversight, the Iron Grits revolt could transform sanctuaries into surveillance states. Modern echo. Post-COVID anxiety spikes saw global demand for mental health apps double by 2025. Social media panic cycles over emergent pathogens, climate collapse headlines, and AI doom narratives sent spikes of self-harm content and collective panic. Wellness startups monetize new fears with algorithmic mood boosters. Impact: societal paralysis looms as information-driven fear overwhelms resilience. Public health must integrate mental wellness protocols into emergency planning. Media platforms must throttle sensationalist triggers. Otherwise, the pandemic of the mind will cripple our ability to respond to real crises. Modern echo. Early breakthroughs in nuclear fusion. Private startup Helion's 2025 pilot reactor achieved net positive energy for seconds. The 2026 Global Climate Pact, ratified by 195 nations, commits to zero emissions pathways. Interfaith AI platforms launch, using natural language models to broker peace talks between rival communities. Impact: if we navigate the darker omens, a surge of cooperative innovation could reshape civilization. Fusion power may end energy poverty. Unified climate action can restore ecosystems. Shared AI-mediated dialogue can heal sectarian divides. The new Renaissance offers a fragile window of hope, but only if humanity endures the 7 shocks beyond 2026. Here, At the convergence of ancient code and cutting-edge data, prophecy becomes praxis. The blackened rivers and iron sky may herald catastrophe, but they also expose the precise fault lines we must fortify. The eclipse of truth and great migration shadows warn of fractures we must bridge. The iron roots revolt and pandemic of the mind challenge our ethics and resilience. Yet beyond them all waits the promise of a new renaissance, a testament to humanity's capacity to rebuild from its own crucible. The choice is ours. Heed these 7 shocking prophecies as a roadmap for urgent action, or let their warnings drift into history's footnotes, unread until it is too late. The clock edges toward 2027. Will you stand prepared to usher in the next age of enlightenment, or awaken to a world reshaped by its darkest omens? Across continents and centuries, disparate voices, sibyls and seers, oracles and AI prophets converge on a shared vision. Beyond 2026, humanity stands at a crossroads of crises and possibility. The blackened rivers, the iron sky armada, the eclipse of truth, the great migration shadows, the iron roots revolt, and the pandemic of the mind all warn of cascading failures in our water, skies, information, mobility, environment, and psyche. Yet woven through these dire forecasts is the promise of a new renaissance, a flowering of art, science, and spiritual unity rising from the ashes of upheaval. Why do these patterns align? Numeric cycles. Ancient calendars still pulse beneath our modern age. The rare Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, calculated by NASA ephemerides to peak on February 11, 2026, has historically heralded seismic societal shifts every 2 decades. From the birth of the printing press in 1447 to the dawn of the digital revolution in 2020, these great conjunctions mark pivot years when old orders fracture and new paradigms emerge. Human nature. Empires ascend and crumble on the same wheel of ambition and hubris. Technologies, biotech, AI, and climate engineering advance faster than our ethical frameworks can contain them. Collective trauma, like the post-COVID mental health crisis and the record wildfires of 2025, cultivates both deep despair and fertile ground for creativity. In crisis, we find renewed purpose. Data-driven echoes. Today's AI-fueled analyzes fuse millennia-old prophecies with real-time data. Project Oracle's Tipping Point 2026 algorithms cross-reference climate models, debt metrics, and migration flows, revealing the precise inflection points Nostradamus and the Sibyls encoded in poetic code. Machine learning platforms now scan satellite feeds and social media currents to forecast emerging disaster zones, turning ancient omens into actionable intelligence. This tapestry is neither inexorable fate nor idle fiction. It is a clarion call to vigilance and to action. Prophecy does not decree what must be, but illuminates what may come if we fail to heed its warnings. The future remains unwritten, a canvas awaiting our choices. Will we invest in resilient infrastructure, govern our biotech creations, safeguard digital truth, welcome the displaced with compassion, and rekindle authentic spiritual and ethical traditions? Or will we sleep through the drumbeats echoing from antiquity? The patterns are clear, the threads of prophecy and data intertwine to form a map of potential cataclysms and of transformative rebirth. Beyond 2026, our destiny hinges not on destiny itself, but on our will to reshape the world before the storm gathers complete. In the dim glow of a world on edge, prophecy offers no panacea, only a stark map of emerging fault lines and the choices that lie before us. To steer from omen to action, we must forge 7 guiding principles, each a beacon through the gathering storm. Resilience of systems. When rivers run toxic and skies hum with invisible rumbles, centralized networks falter. Across Puerto Rico, community microgrids powered by solar and battery storage proved their worth after the 2025 hurricanes, keeping hospitals and water pumps alive when the main grid collapsed. We must replicate these models, deploy decentralized water security hubs with advanced filtration, and build redundant communication channels beyond single-point failures. Ethical technology governance. In Geneva and New York, Diplomats are drafting the first legally binding treaty on lethal autonomous weapons, even as NATO, Russia, and China test drone swarms. Similarly, the UN's 2025 Summit on AI Ethics edged toward consensus on transparent algorithms. We need enforceable international accords, not voluntary guidelines, to ensure bio-OT safeguards and to prevent living infrastructures from evolving into iron overlords. Humanitarian solidarity. The UN's estimate of 20 million climate migrants in 2025, the clarion call for shared responsibility. Europe's Green Corridors pilot projects and Canada's resettlement funds offer hopeful templates. We must scale these frameworks globally, guaranteeing safe passages and equitable resource sharing for those forced from parched lands. Digital truth infrastructure. As internet shutdowns hit 260 incidents in 2023 to 25, and deep fake scandals erode trust, we need blockchain-backed news ledgers and digital ombudsmen, independent bodies certifying journalistic integrity. Countries like Estonia have pioneered e-residency and secure digital IDs. It's time to extend that trust architecture to information itself. Psychological resilience. The post-COVID surge in mental health app subscriptions reveals a pandemic of the mind. Community-based network peer-supported wellness cafes in Melbourne and Nigeria's mental health hotlines must become standard, weaving social cohesion before fear fractures our collective psyche. Interdisciplinary collaboration. Scientists, spiritual leaders, indigenous knowledge keepers, and artists each hold fragments of truth. Brazil's Amazon Guardians program, blending traditional ecological practices with satellite monitoring, shows how cross-sector alliances can protect both land and lore. Visionary education. To wield prophecy as wisdom, not terror, schools must teach critical thinking, cosmic history, and ethical foresight. Finland's national curriculum overhaul, introducing philosophy and future studies modules in primary grades, offers a blueprint for cultivating citizens capable of steering history's helm. Prophecy illuminates what may come, but action shapes what will be. By embedding these principles into our policies, technologies, and communities, we chart a course from foreboding omens to collective resilience and ensure that the horrors foreseen in 2026 become the crucible of a wiser, more compassionate world. In the silent vault of tomorrow, prophecies lie like slumbering titans waiting for the stir of human choice to awaken their power. From Nostradamus' veiled quatrains and the Sibyl's cryptic verses to the Chaldean astronomers' celestial omens and the digital divinations of AI oracles, every warning converges on 2026 and beyond. They speak of fractures in our environment, our systems, and our souls, but also of transformation born from crisis. Will you march unseeing into the gathering tempest, or stand with the watchmen on the ramparts, scanning the horizon with hearts forged in wisdom? These forecasts are not ironclad decrees, but signposts on a branching road. By heeding their darkest warnings, we claim the power to steer turmoil toward renewal, to transmute upheaval into opportunity, and to craft a future that honors both our ancient heritage and our boundless potential. Thank you for journeying beyond 2026 with us. If these revelations have sharpened your vigilance, like and subscribe for our next Odyssey, 2030 Unveiled, Prophecies of a New World Era. Click the bell to remain ever watchful, for foresight is our greatest armor against the unknown. Until our paths cross again, stay curious, stay courageous, and may the whispers of the past illuminate your steps into the uncharted dawn.